So we're going to have a fireside chat with Valerie Obaze and Jasmine Monaco. Now, in a world that moves faster than our hearts can keep pace, wellness no longer just a personal practice, it is a movement, a culture, a business. This session, The Business of Balance, Building Brands, Spaces and Festivals that Heal, explores how visionaries are designing experiences that restore, inspire, transform, from thoughtfully crafted wellness spaces to festivals that celebrate ritual, community, and ancestral wisdom. This conversation, Jasmine Monaco and Valerie Obaze will dive into strategies behind creating brands that not only drive commercially but also elevate human well-being. So I invite all of you to welcome Valerie Obaze, Jasmine Monaco, as they uncover how intention, innovation, and integrity come together to build platforms that heal, connect, and awaken, proving that balance is not a luxury, but a business of the highest purpose. Welcome, Jasmine. Welcome, Valerie. Take it over from here.
Thank you so much, Josephine, for the fantastic introduction. I hope you can hear us okay. Um, Firstly, it's a total pleasure and privilege to be here and to speak with Valerie today about all things R&R and like you said, the most important word of all, balance and how we can bring that to the business sphere. So kicking off with Valerie, how are you? How are you doing today?
Hi, Jasmine. I'm very good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure. We've got a full list of questions, so I know we'll get cracking straight away, but wanted to check in first of all on how you're doing. So that's great to hear you're well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Fantastic. So kicking off then, for those of you, who don't know about R&R and about Valerie's story, it would be great just to go through a quick background on, what inspired you to start this fantastic brand and a little bit about your personal story.
Hi, just double checking you can hear me. I've taken off my headphones.
Still clear.
Okay, perfect. I was inspired to start R&R about 15 years ago after having my first child. I just moved from the UK to Nigeria. My husband is Nigerian and he had moved to Lagos. And when we got married, I followed him to Lagos. And in 2010, we had our first child. And having been there for, 6 or so months, I did realize that we were lacking our own brands. And that didn't come from a sudden revelation. It came from the fact that I was looking for natural skincare to use on my baby's skin. And when I'd go to the pharmacies or the grocery stores, what was on the shelves was purely imported products. There was nothing that was locally made and locally packaged. Of course, you could go to the market and find our raw materials like shea butter or coconut oil or black soap, but there was nothing that was formally produced, packaged, and presented to be used for the local market and beyond. So it got me thinking that why is it that we have these amazing raw materials and amazing ingredients that are being used everywhere else in the world, but not being used locally. Well, they're being used locally, but not being packaged and produced into a beautiful finished product that would be enjoyable to use. Not everybody wants to go to the market and buy a product that is in its raw form and use it in that sense. You want to have something in a nice packaging with added aromatherapeutic qualities, essential oils, fragrance oils, perfume oils, whatever it was, so that you could experience it in an enjoyable way. And I just couldn't find anything like that. So I set about creating something for my family and sharing it with others and seeing, if other people liked it, I asked them to come back and purchase on their second go. So that's the background, that's the genesis of how I started the brand. And 15 years later, we're still here today.
15 years later, here we are. Fantastic. So it was a gradual accumulation of you looking for these products, not finding them, and wondering why Africa wasn't benefiting from these natural ingredients.
Absolutely. I think the beneficiary part was something that came later in the process of creating, but it was just coming from a need and wondering why we weren't able to fulfill that need ourselves. And obviously we could, it's just that we weren't doing it.
Yeah, understood. And you mentioned about a couple of your key ingredients, which is shea butter and baobab as well. And
Yes.
would you just speak to the audience a little bit about what these can do for the skin?
Oh, I mean, the list is very extensive. Thankfully, I didn't invent either of the two products, and they have been doing great things in the beauty market for decades. So, shea butter is one of those ingredients that so many people are familiar with, and it's been used in beauty formulations for the longest time. So, lots of great marketing has been done around it. It's just unfortunate that the marketing and the production wasn't taking place with African-owned companies. They were all European companies for the most part in the early days. And now, of course, the US market as well. You've got some amazing shea-based brands, and they do buy their shea butter from Africa because Africa is the only place that produces shea. It's exclusive to the continent. But the story was being told for us. And shea butter, of course, has amazing emulsive and moisturizing qualities. It's packed full of fatty acids, packed full of many different vitamins, as is with baobab, again, a native tree. It's called the tree of life, native to the continent. I believe that you can also find baobab trees in Australia, but you definitely can't find them in Europe or in America or China for that matter. So it's one of those things that, again, coming from the soil, the African soil, and taking the raw materials and producing them to finished products. And what you'd find is that baobab, for example, full of various vitamins A, C, D, and E, and it has these natural qualities that brighten, repair, even help your skin in the aging process. And they're used in tiny quantities in international formulations. But we're like, listen, these things are great. You can use them directly on your skin. You don't even necessarily need to, mix them into other products to make them special just on their own. They're fantastic as they are. So this I learned myself from using the products and introducing them to other people. And I'm my own customer. And if it's something that's good enough for my skin and my newborn babies, I was hoping that other people would trust me to share those products with them, and thankfully they have.
Absolutely. I have a little 3-week-old at the moment, and she was slathered in shea butter just
Oh,
last night. So I
yeah,
think anyone across the African diaspora who's, well, ever had any dry skin, dry hair, has hopefully experienced that at some point.
absolutely. Even if they can't remember, it may just be as a newborn.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Okay, fantastic. And about sourcing these ingredients, Valerie, obviously, like you said, they're, widely available, but how do you go about sourcing your specific strains?
For me, it wasn't very difficult. I actually was introduced to shea oil. That was the first thing that I'd seen because obviously I knew shea butter, that wasn't anything new. But when I discovered shea oil, I think my mum was using it for a massage, and she was able to give me direct access. She said, "Oh, somebody gave it to me, but they told me that they got it from somebody in the north. I can get their phone number for you." And that's the beauty of Africa. You're always 2 steps away from the source. So it's not very difficult to source the ingredients. So you can easily find out or find your supplier. If you don't know them or the first person that you've met doesn't know them, they can introduce you to somebody that does. And I think that is the beauty of working and building in Africa. So I source from well, initially we were sourcing from different suppliers within the north of Ghana, but now we actually produce our own shea butter. So we built our own purpose-built processing center in the rural north of Ghana in the Savannah region. And we work with the women in the community and we form them into cooperative groups. So they are their own businesses. We don't pay them a salary, they're not our employees, but we give them free access to our facility to be able to produce on our behalf. And then we purchase the butter from them at an above market rate.
Incredible. And that's one of the most beautiful and sort of standout things about your brand that I learned when doing the research for this panel. And how important was that decision to you to create those cooperatives and support the Ghanaian women?
Oh, it was one of the, most important decisions I've ever made when it comes to this business. And it's something that happened over a period of time. I didn't enter the market and build my own factory sourcing raw material. It's something that over a period of time, sourcing from different suppliers, you also want to have full traceability across your entire supply chain. And sometimes that can be difficult when you're working with the informal sector. So for me, I like to see things, I like to have full visibility over everything I do, because you're offering a product to a market that they're not your friends and family, they're people that you may never ever meet. And you want to ensure that the quality is the purest and the best that you can give them. So as far as quality control goes and entire, traceability, it was very important for us to build our own production facilities from end to end. And that's not easy to do. And there are amazing suppliers that we still work with, because we can't produce everything for ourselves. So it's just that we needed to control at least some part of it. So it means that, it's a lot of work, but at least we know, as soon as, if there's anything that goes wrong, we know exactly where to trace it back to. And that was very important for us in terms of quality management systems. And why do you put quality management systems in place? It's for the customer. It's for the end user. So those things are very important. And of course, empowering hundreds of women in rural communities to be able to work for themselves is a no-brainer. I'm a woman, I'm a mother to 3 young ladies who will be women too in the near future. And I'm very pro-girl. And to be able to, when you empower a woman, you empower a whole community. So it's very important for me that people are able to be employed or be able to run their own businesses effectively, and therefore feed the next generation, put them in education, all of those things. So it's a positive domino effect.
Thank you. Such a fantastic answer.
Thank
And
you.
you talked about suppliers there. You talked obviously about setting up your own production model, but words that stood out were community, making sure that people are empowered and working autonomously. What else, and this could maybe be quite a general question, but when choosing to work with people, what else do you look out for? Is there factors like sustainability that come into effect, for example? What else?
I mean, it depends what parts of the supply chain they're coming on board with, but
Sure.
for me, company culture is very important. And what I wanted people to understand, because, you do have this generalization in Africa that people don't stay in places for long, they don't work hard. And I came from a different continent, and for me, I don't like sweeping generalizations. I like to take everybody at face value. So that means that everybody that comes on board on your vision and your dream, because they're literally coming to work with me based on something I started in my kitchen, they have to buy into the dream and the vision themselves. So it's always very important for me to train people and let them understand where this company started from, where it's gotten to, and what our big dreams are and our big goals are, so that they know that they're part of that process and they're part of that story. And without them, the story wouldn't be possible. So when I'm looking for people to work with us, with the women in the communities, there are hundreds of women, and they are very organized in the way that they do things. Shea butter, like I said, is being produced for centuries. And the cooperative model is nothing that I invented. It's something that already exists in those communities. And for me, it's very important for people to have autonomy, for those women to have autonomy. But what we do is that we ensure with our quality management systems that we give them health and safety training, we give them business training, we give them training on how to manage your finances, all of these important things to get people out of that poverty cycle is big to me, because you've been seeing the campaigns that talk about the she in share, and how these women, you see great pictures of them in campaigns showing that they are the reason behind shea butter, but when you go and meet them, they're still working on very little amounts of money a day. They're not making very much, and they're still living in poverty. My hope and dream is to develop them so that they have more than a living wage and are able to look after themselves, look after their families. So, those things are what matter to me. But when it comes to our direct employees, it's them sharing the vision with them and having them come on board with that. And once they can see it and believe it for themselves, I think that is a very important factor when it comes to employing. And I like to do all interviews myself, even when it comes to entry-level retail staff. even cleaners, whatever it is. I do like to meet the people first before they come into the company so they understand who we are and what our vision is. And I can normally always tell when someone gets it. And we've had people that have been with the business from day one, from 2010, and are still with us now. There's a lady that opened our shop, our first shop, which was in Lagos in Nigeria in 2013. She's still the manager of the store to this day, and that's 12 years ago. So, we've had some really long retention. Of course, some people have come and they have gone, but and I wish them all the best in their futures. And I'm in touch with many people that have moved on to different careers, but we've had many people that worked with us for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And it's honestly such a blessing to be able to have that kind of support when it comes to your team.
Absolutely. Well, 12 years retention, that speaks for itself.
Even 15 in some cases. So I think we're doing something right.
Absolutely. So, retention stories like that, and obviously setting up communities and cooperatives are there incredible achievements. What else do you feel most proud of, or would they be your biggest brand achievements?
I think we're still on that journey. Every day, something new comes up. I mean, we've won awards, we've been on CNN, I've been featured in Forbes as a African skincare trailblazer, and that all of these things, all of these accolades are wonderful. But for me to keep a business existing in this economic climate out of Africa, where we weren't building brands out of the country, not in this way, not these consumer beauty brands, for us to have recognition all over the world and be growing into a global space is a dream come true. But also, the majority of what we're building is actually on the continent. And for me, the goal is to have the brand reach all four corners of the African continent. That's when I think I know that's when I've made it. But honestly, for me, it's a journey. There's no, specific goal that we'll get to that will say, okay, great, that's it.
Yeah.
We've done it. But yeah, we do applaud, every accolade, every goal that we reach as we go, but then another one comes, and just like goals being achieved, we also face new challenges every day. So there's never any time to kind of stop and celebrate. We just keep moving and keep growing.
Thank you. And speaking to those challenges, is there a few that you can name, starting a company in Africa?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, how long have you got?
Probably a
But
couple of minutes.
yeah, starting
You still have like 10 more minutes.
Okay, starting a company, I'm not going to spend 10 minutes talking about challenges.
No.
We could go on for much longer, and I like to focus on the positives, but absolutely you're going to meet challenges. Some of those for us, growing a brand from Africa is the trade barriers, even within the continent, getting things from A to B and not as simple as you'd think they would be. Sometimes it might even be cheaper to take them to Europe and bring them back in than it is to just go directly. I know that we have the AFCTFA, or anyway, the African Trade Commission, which is supposed to create a borderless Africa and take down the trade barriers so that we can trade with each other efficiently. And I'm very excited for the day that takes place, because we'll be able to do fantastic business. In order to get something from here to Nigeria, which is just 2 countries away, can be difficult at times. Even to get, when we have orders coming in from South Africa, I know that on the other end, the customs and duties that they pay can be absolutely crippling. And so it puts people off doing business with us, because even though we're just a mere 6-hour flight away, or 4 hours if it's East Africa, the amount that they'd have to pay when clearing can be off-putting. So that's one of the major challenges. Of course, fluctuation in foreign exchange and currencies is a big problem. Stable forex, stable currencies will be a massive change for us when that does happen, and when we do reach that day. I mean, I think that goes across the board, not just in what I do, in everything that is done, all consumer goods, all business, B2B that takes place, and fluctuation of currency is going to be a large concern. regulatory aspects is different in every territory. You do in Africa, you have to, I mean, you do in Ghana, you have to do a separate one in Nigeria. We entering Europe, that is a very, very challenging situation where you have the European regulatory requirements are extremely stringent. And for a small business, it can actually be financially crippling, and they seem to get more and more stringent by the year. So it can take you a year, you think you've got in there, and then all of a sudden there's a new requirement to meet. So some of those things can be very difficult and crippling for a small business, and makes you almost want to just stay in one country and just keep your market within there. But of course, if you're trying to be a global brand, you've just got to keep on going. So that's what we do. Access to finance in Africa, difficult, high interest rates, no credit. There's not much credit here. So everything is cash in, cash out. Is that enough? Have I given you enough of the
that's a great
challenges? Yeah, I
overview.
could go on, but
So, Jasmine, there's a question on the place from
Chat.
Robin Turner.
Yes.
He's asking to Valerie Obaze, do you think Nigeria putting a moratorium on selling and exporting shea nuts will help elevate African brands stroke businesses?
yes, it will do in the long run, because even a company like mine, sometimes we struggle to buy nuts in the season, Shea nuts is a precious commodity, but if it's exported raw, the what is retained by the economy is very, very little. So what Nigeria are aiming to do, and actually Ghana also put a similar moratorium in place. I think it's to take effect in 2026, but the news of it was released maybe about early in the summer, that they wanted to halt the export of shea nuts unless you were certified or had some specific certification. I think these things are important, especially if you want to create value on the continent, which of course historically value addition was not our thing, but it is changing. And in order for it to change, we also need to be able to access the raw materials ourselves and not have to buy them at a higher price because we've been priced out of the market. So I think it is an important move, but we also have to ensure that there are the factories and there are the processing centers available to add value to all of those nuts that are produced in the season. And if there are, then it's fantastic, because like I said, we struggle every year to aggregate and collect the nuts to have our supply for the year, because so much of it leaves the country raw. Well, what we're doing is adding 2 levels of value to it. We're going from nut to butter, and then we're turning the butter into a finished packaged goods product that is sold directly to consumer. And if we don't have access to the nuts, then we're having to purchase at a higher price out of the season, and it just makes our finished product even more expensive and less competitive in the international market, because once we get it to leave the country, we have to pay high cost of freight, and then when it gets to the country of intended location, we still have to pay duties, customs, taxes, all of those things. So then are we then competitive with stuff that is made locally in those countries in America or in Europe? We have to be able to remain competitive. So I think it's a good move. It just has to be followed through all the way, and to make sure there's no wastage. Yes, some people are going to miss out. Some middlemen are going to find that their business is impacted because they're not able to sell. But ultimately, if it goes back, the country wins, because now we can add value to it ourselves and are not scraping for the little bits that are left over after everyone else has taken what they want.
Another question from Curry Beckwith. He says, I am a supporter of the brand. The wood and lemongrass were my favorites. If you haven't already, will you be placing in hotels, spas, etc., or would you consider doing contractor manufacturing for brand?
Thank you for that question, Corey. And I don't like that you say they were your favorites. I hope that Oud and Lemongrass are still your favorites and you're still a fan of the brand. And absolutely, hospitality is a very important part of what we do, and we are growing that hospitality side of things. And the exciting part now is that most hospitality brands are trying to be sustainable, so they're not doing the minis in the hotel rooms anymore. They're doing full-size products and refilling rather than having the customers take those away. So we do have some partnerships with some hospitality partners. In fact, there's one in Zimbabwe. There's a lodge called Batoka Lodge. They're based in Zambezi Falls, and we are their hospitality partner, and they stock our products in their amenities in their bathrooms. And we're working with a new spa and wellness space that's opened up in Addis Ababa, which is something new that's just opening in the next couple of weeks. So we are expanding on the hospitality side. So yes, absolutely, that is something that we do and are doing and hoping to grow over the next year or so. And contract manufacturing is something I think that will come later. At the moment, we're at full capacity for R&R on its own, so we haven't got the room for contract manufacturing yet, but when we do, it will be absolutely something that we'll add. Oh, yes, thank you, Corey. He said it still is. First stop when he lands in Accra. Wonderful.
Okay, Jasmine, you still have 3 minutes to go.
Thank you. Well, just focusing on the future then as well, Valerie, because I know, like you said, R&R is at capacity, but you've got wellness festival, festival place as well. So it'll be great to just touch on the future and what you're thinking.
Oh, absolutely. So with R&R Skincare, for us, it's growing the brand and getting it into as many bathrooms and, homes as possible. And we're working on building that, bit by bit. And with the hospitality as well, going into hotels, restaurants, spas, wellness places. And we're opening up our own wellness space. So sister brand to R&R Skincare is R&R Wellness. We have been hosting wellness festivals since 2021. So in June of 2021, on Global Wellness Day, we hosted an intimate group of people when we were launching our sustainable packaging, which was our refill packaging. We'd just come out of the hysteria of COVID. We were still in the pandemic, but the hysteria had kind of died down a little bit. And people had been alone for a whole year. And we wanted to gather, people together again. Community is very important to us. Wanted to bring a few people together to have a morning of wellness. So we had a yoga morning with brunch at this new space that had opened up in Accra. And of course, everything we do, we share on our social media. And we had a lot of people coming and saying that we would have loved to have been there. Why didn't you invite consumers to attend? And so the following year, we opened it up to consumers. And that is when it was then called R&R Wellness Day. Eventually, they wanted us to do it every 3 months at least. So I think in 2022, we had 2 wellness festivals. Same in 2023. We did one in Lagos as well, and we had a small one in Cape Town. And this festival started becoming a thing. And me personally, I was on a wellness journey, getting into my fitness, my food, my supplements, mental health. And with our wellness festivals, we were doing not just fitness, we had a mental health expert that would talk to the group. So we'd have a main stage and have main stage activities, and we'd cut across nutrition, mental health, Pilates, yoga, HIIT. So, there was a movement, and there was also taking time to sit down and take stock and assess where you are mentally. And for me, I could do that festival every month if I could, but the reality is that we just don't have the time. So the newest era of it is the wellness place. So we're opening up a physical wellness space above our R&R flagship store, and it's called the Wellness Place, and it's by R&R Wellness. And there is sort of your recovery space. So where you come and have a nutritious meal with a menu curated by a nutrition coach, you're able to have a spa treatment or meet a rotating residency of practitioners. So osteopath, chiropractor, trichologist, mental health therapist, diagnostics. And we also have recovery space where we have high tech recovery equipment, infrared panels, infrared masks. And then we have a studio space where we'll be doing holistic studio experiences. So yoga, breath work, stretch, and also have an opportunity to have meetups and workshops. So we'll talk about women's health issues, men's health issues, and just general things that we're all facing on a day-to-day, but maybe don't have anyone to speak to about it. Menopause, fibroids, infertility, pancreatic health, prostate health, whatever it is that people are facing. We want the opportunity for people to be able to come into a community and speak to an expert. I won't be taking the workshops. I'm no health expert, but I am on my own personal wellness journey. And I want to have that space where community can gather and you meet like-minded people that are into the same things, or where you can discover, new aspects of wellness and just treat yourself to being well.
Beautiful. Sorry, I thought I was on mute there. That sounds like a really comprehensive look at all aspects of wellness and holistic health. So the future is bright. Before we sign off, just a very quick question on if there's one thing you could take or give, I guess, to entrepreneurs who are thinking about, starting out in something similar, perhaps skincare, perhaps wellness, and most definitely in Africa. What would that be, Valerie?
I would encourage them to, first of all, know the reason why you want to go into either of those industries. And if you're very clear on what your why is, then I would absolutely say go for it. Open up your network, find out who you know. I mean, use all parts of your network to get you where you need to go to, because once you have a community and you have a network, there are people there that are willing to help you to get whatever it is that you need. And just be open-minded, be aware that you will face many challenges, but that's all part of the journey, and to just go ahead and do it.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. Thank you so much, Jasmine. Thank you, Josephine. Thank you, Africa Wellness Summit, for having me. I'm going to try and stay on and listen to some of the further talks, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Valerie, for such an amazing fire chat conversation. I am, as you heard, Valerie, that it's still his favorite, so he still will land there when it comes to Accra. So you don't have to worry about that.
Mine is definitely facial oil. It's next level.
Amazing. Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
So,